excited for our next presentation, our conversation, I should say. We are joined by Dr. Ivan Misner, and in just a moment, I'm actually going to have Jason Avery is doing his introduction. Though I did want to let you know, he's going to share for a little bit, and then we're going to do a little Q&A. And so you can go down to your Zoom toolbar and find the Q&A button. Now, Abilio, Gloria, and Beth, I do have your questions that you sent. We're going to ask those first when we get to the Ask Ivan part. But if y'all have other questions you want to put into the Q&A, and the intention is we can just go through them quickly, maybe pair some together. So if you have those, you can put them. Unless there's any other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Jason to introduce Ivan. And thank you so much for being here with us today, Ivan.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I got some notes here. Please bear with me. I didn't want to leave anything out, but I also want to take Ivan down memory lane for 1 second. And this man has had a profound impact on my life and my success and all my businesses. And my first interaction with him was over 12 years ago, and BNI National Conference came to Tampa. And Sean Yesner, who was with us here today, said, let's invite Ivan out to lunch with our chapter. He accepted. And I said, how's he going to get there? And I volunteered to be his chauffeur. And to stand out in the crowd that day, I showed up like this. I thought if he didn't remember my name, he'd remember the contractor in Tampa with the yellow hard hat. So I thought that would be fun. In the time since then, I've had the opportunity through Tiffanie to be interviewed by Ivan about power teams. Tom was able to inspire Ivan to write the foreword for my book. And then I worked really hard to win a visitors competition one time so I could get on that cruise with Ivan. And he was so gracious to sign my book that he wrote the foreword for. So Ivan, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. And I want to tell these people some things about you. Ivan's the Chief Visionary Officer and founder of BNI, Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Founded in 1985, the organization now has over 11,000 chapters in 76 countries, and that's throughout every populated continent in the world. And last year alone, BNI generated 15.2 million referrals. That's translating to 23.4 billion, with a B, worth of business. And Dr. Misner's PhD is from the University of South California. He is a New York Times best-selling author who has written 30-plus books, including the newest, Infinite Legacy, and the 7 principles of creating a lasting impact with your life. He's also a columnist for Entrepreneur.com, and he has been a university professor at several universities, as well as a member of the Board of Trustees for the University of La Verne. Called the father of modern networking by both Forbes and CNN, Dr. Misner is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations throughout the world. He has been featured in the LA Times, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, as well as numerous TV and radio shows, including CNN, the BBC, and the Today Show on NBC. He has traveled to all 7 continents of the world, including Antarctica. Among his many awards, he has been named the Humanitarian of the Year by the Red Cross and has been the recipient of the John C. Maxwell Leadership Award. He's the co-founder of the BNI Charitable Foundation and is married to Jody Misner. Oh, and in his spare time, he's also an amateur magician and he's a black belt in karate. I'm so pleased and honored to welcome Dr. Ivan Misner.
Jason, good to see you again. Thank you so much. Thanks for the introduction. Nigel, I saw you were holding up a copy of Infinite Giving. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Or actually, Infinite Legacy, the follow-up to Infinite Giving. That book, Infinite Legacy, just came out. And heads up for everybody, on the 31st, it's going to be on Kindle in Amazon.com for 99 cents. So hang on just 3 more days. And you can get a copy of the book for 99 cents. We want to push it onto the bestsellers list. So you'll see me put it up on my social media. Feel free to share it. And of course, Tiffanie, thank you for the invitation. And it's great to see so many of you that I know. Abilio, Tom, I've known you for a long time, and it's great to see you all here. I really just have 1 or 2 things to say, and then I want to answer questions that you have. And Tiffanie, I'll let you call on the people who ask the questions. If they don't happen to be here, I'll let you throw the question at me. I have seen those 3, but I'm happy to answer any question. The only dumb questions the unasked questions. So whatever's on your mind is okay with me. It was mentioned that we passed 15 million referrals last year. That's true. In the last 12 months, in the preceding 12 months, we've generated 24 billion with a B, 24 billion US dollars worth of thank you for closed business. Now, what I love about that is if you take a look at the United Nations estimates of GDP, gross domestic product, there are actually 100 countries in the world with a lower GDP than what BNI generated for its members in the last 12 months. That blows my mind. That to me is just absolutely incredible that we could be generating as much business for our members as more than 100 countries in the world. And I'm just honored and humbled that we've been able to do that. We are about to celebrate our 40th anniversary. We're going to do it at the U.S. Convention just a couple of months early. The 40th anniversary is January 8th, 2025. And we're going to celebrate at this international convention. I'm really looking forward to this. If you haven't had a chance to go to the convention, you can still sign up. You can still go. It's in Hawaii. That's a pretty cool place to be. And what I love about the convention is it's like going to a United Nations meeting where all the countries actually like each other. And so it's a wonderful place to go. And I know many of you that are on this have been to the convention. I hope to see you there at this one. But what I'd really like to do for the rest of the time here is answer questions that you've got for me. And so let me hand it over to you, Tiffanie.
And actually, before maybe I'll ask the first question, because we love, and I know Sean Yesner's listening in, we love the conversation of wax and flame. Yeah. And with everything that's going on with the storm, many of us are reevaluating and how do we want to live our lives and how can we live more in the flame? And so could you start us off just by telling us a little bit about wax and flame?
Yeah, so the concept that I've talked about and I've written about, and I'm pretty sure you can find a podcast on it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. BNI podcast. And by the way, any topics, go to BNI podcast and do a search on the search button, and you will see. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can. I'll share my screen. I just did a search here. No, not waste of time. I want wax. Let's see if we can find. I know I've got a whole podcast on it.
It's like 61.
Is it 61?
Yeah.
Wow, has it been that long? Really?
Stay in your flame?
Yeah. Who shared that just now?
Sylvia.
Sylvia, you rock. Stay in your flame. There it is. Very good.
Nigel put it in the chat to me, but I'm putting it in the chat to all y'all. So there's that link too.
So the whole idea with it is, if you're working in your flame, you're on fire, you're excited, you're passionate about what you're doing, and people can hear it in your voice and they can see it in the way you behave. If you're working in your wax, it just takes all your energy away. People can hear that in your voice and they can see that in the way you behave. And so the key is to try and find things that are in your flame and shift to working mostly in your flame and not in your wax. Now, look, I understand that, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. And it took me a long time to be able to get to work mostly in my flame. And I'm there now, but it took a few decades for me to get out. Actually you reinvent yourself. Sometimes something is your flame. There were things in BNI that were my flame that ended up, I did it for so long, it became my wax. And it got to the point where finally, what I really wanted to do was focus on speaking to members and pouring into members and directors and doing media and writing books. So I went from, basically being King Arthur leading the charge to being Colonel Sanders. And that's my flame these days, is being Colonel Sanders. And so recognize that sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. But your goal should be to be focusing on what your flame is, what you're most excited about. And I've seen people who've changed their flame over time, certainly during COVID, certainly during horrific weather events like happened in Florida. That's an opportunity to shift into your flame. Does that answer your question, Tiffany?
Yes, that does. Thank you so much. I know it's just a topic that comes up frequently and we love referencing it. So I wanted to let the community hear it from him. Tom?
Quickly, Dr. Misner.
Tom, we've known each other for decades. Call me Ivan.
Yes.
And everyone here, call me Ivan, please.
So we had a conversation about vision earlier, vision of your business, vision of your life. And I would think that it's important to identify what your vision is before you decide on what, or to understand what your wax is and what your flame is. How has your vision impacted your decision of your path?
Yeah, I think, having an idea of what your vision is important. Just remember that sometimes things turn out, you might get where you want to go, but sometimes you might get there in a slightly different direction. Mm-hmm. But having that vision is, that's your North Star. That's what you keep moving towards. Sometimes people think that success is like a straight line. You go from here to there, and it's not. Success is like a real crooked, you're doing this and this. Sometimes you go backwards and then you go forwards, and your vision is that way too. In the book that I did before Infinite Legacy, The Third Paradigm, I talk about this concept. Hold the vision, not the obstacles. People tend to get completely obsessed with obstacles. Completely obsessed with obstacles. I see it in BNI chapters all the time. Yeah, they're complaining about what the problems are. And yeah, okay, there are always problems. There are always obstacles. Do you think there weren't obstacles in 1985 when I started BNI? One of the biggest obstacles, they always laugh when they hear this. Probably the number one obstacle when I started BNI and when I started every new country, the number one obstacle was, is this Amway? That's what everybody asked. And I said, no, it's not. No, it's not. Amway's great, and we have members who are in Amway, and that's fine. Well, this is multi-level. No, it's not multi-level. It's like, that was the number one problem in 1985. So what you have to do is you hold your vision, not the obstacles. Do you think we had obstacles in 85? Yeah. Do you think we had obstacles when we started franchising in the early 90s? Yeah. Do you think we had obstacles, as the internet came out? One of the biggest things that the media would say to me, do you think BNI is going to shut down because of the internet? Well, no, the internet helped us grow. And so we held the vision. Do you think we had obstacles during COVID? Oh, huge obstacles. Do you think we have obstacles today? Yeah. And guess what? There will be obstacles tomorrow. There are always obstacles. They're always there. The key for being successful is to hold the vision, not the obstacles. Now, the vision may move a little bit. It's okay to adjust your vision. It's okay to change your timeline if you need to, but hold the vision, not the obstacles. A good friend of mine, Mark McCurgow, recommended his book for years, Solutions Focus. He says, if all you do is focus on the problem, you become an expert at the problem. What you have to do is focus on the solutions. And I see this with chapters a lot. They're so obsessed with the problem that nobody's talking about the solution. And guess what? They become experts at the problem and the chapter doesn't do well. Does that answer your question, Tom?
You're muted, Tom.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Adam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, was your follow-up about this topic or a different question?
No, it was the same topic. I mean, I probably cite Ivan 100 times a year with about 5 or 6 of his top quotes that had really resonated with me and, fundamentally changed me. The wax is definitely top 5. And it started because when I came to BNI, I was invited as I was working for somebody else. And, through Ivan's teachings, got inspired to get out on my own. And from day one, I hired the bookkeeper, even though he was only 1 day a week, because I knew that was my wax and I needed to be out and dealing with the people. And then as the business grew, and learning more about behaviors and styles. It was, what are each of my team members' waxes and flames, and can I keep the right people in the right space or the right role in the company to, let them flourish in their, opportunity working together. It was bigger and better, and that all came.
Thanks. And hold the vision, not the obstacles. It came out of this book, The Third Paradigm. And let me tell you a secret about this book. We tell a story about a guy named Richard in an online platform that is being developed. What we don't say, we say that the story is true, but we don't say who the story is about because we didn't want the story to be just about one of the main co-authors. The online platform that's discussed in this book is BNI Connect. And we never actually say that. The person who the story is about is a guy named Richard. Well, Richard's my middle name. And so the story is about me and BNI Connect. So if you want the dirt on how BNI Connect came to be and the absolute massive obstacles that were thrown in front of us, and know in the back of your mind that it's about BNI Connect and it's about me and BNI, even though we never actually come out and say that.
That's awesome. Now I'm going to have to go back and reread that section. I kind of remember it, but I'm like, I'm going to have to reread it from that perspective.
Yeah, well, there are pullouts in every chapter. So the story of Richard is in every chapter. It's interwoven in every chapter. So just read the pullouts and you'll see the whole story of BNI Connect from the beginning to the end. Well, from the beginning to the release of the version that was released in 2011, 2012.
Awesome. Excellent. All right. So our next question, we're going to go over to Abilio. He has a question. So you want to unmute and ask your question, Abilio? You want me to read it for you?
Yeah, you can do it, please. Yeah.
Okay. So his question, he heard in Vegas last May that one of the key differentiators explaining BNI India's success growth is its community sense, the deep sense of being willing to help other business owners succeed as well. We're here today to help others devastated by the hurricanes. What would be one or two ideas to elevate our sense of community, though not only in times of disaster?
Yeah, well, there are two things that I think make some countries like India stand out, and the sense of community is one. And let me come back to that because that's particularly important in Florida. But there's one that's, I think, even bigger, and that is that there are certain countries in the world, India being first amongst them, that are passionate about learning. I mean, they are just sponges for learning. I have more followers. Now, there are almost twice as many, a third as many members in the US as there are in India. That won't last long, by the way. I think within the next 5 years, India will surpass us unless we wake up. But they are passionate about learning. I have more comments on my podcasts, on my blogs, on my Facebook posts from members in India than I do the US, and yet the US outnumbers the members in India. So they are absolutely passionate about learning. I'm going to get a little, I don't want to say negative, but I'm going to speak real world to you here for a moment. Jim Collins says, face the ugly truth. We've gotten lazy in the United States. Our country's lazy about business compared to what other countries look at the US and they go, oh, they're working so hard. They're doing so great. I think in many ways, Americans are, they're coasting. They're coasting. And here's the thing, if you're coasting for very long, you're going downhill. Mm-hmm. And I see countries like India where America's their target. They want to be like Americans in generating business. And so when you want to be like someone else, you immerse yourself in educational content. Now, I'm singing to the choir here because those of you who are here believe in this, but those people who aren't here, and there are a lot who aren't here that probably should be, they're not immersed in education. And I think the number one issue in countries like India is they are completely immersed in learning. The second thing is certainly community. Boy, they are adamant about creating community and large communities. They're, you know, the average chapter size in India for the entire country, the average chapter size is 50. That's their average. So they're really about creating community. And I think what is interesting is, you know, you see things that happen in some countries. India was one where they did a multi-chapter kickoff. They put a number, and on one morning they kicked off multiple chapters. And I remember talking to a BNI director, and they said, that would never work in the US. You can't open up multiple chapters in one day. And I'm like, that started in the US. The US created that concept. And we've gotten fat and lazy. We've gotten complacent. We look at what other countries are doing and we're going, oh, well, we could never do that. Well, we've done it. When I say other countries are standing on the shoulders of giants, I mean it. The United States built this company, and now we've gotten a little bit complacent. What we have to do is really get back into focusing on learning and community. And I've seen, you know, community development happen during disasters in the past. The first that I witnessed personally was the Northridge earthquake in the early 90s. And I was scheduled to show up to a chapter in Northridge 2 days after the earthquake. And I went. And when I got there about 15 minutes early. We discovered that the restaurant had been shut down. It was unsafe. And so they had yellow tape all across the doors, and they didn't have a chance to call the chapter president about the morning. So all the members showed up. This is 2 days after the big Northridge earthquake. All the members showed up, and we couldn't get into the restaurant. It was shut down, and from damage from the earthquake. And it was one of the most meaningful meetings I've ever attended in my life, because we stood there in the parking lot. And the president said, let's hold the meeting. We'll hold a short version of the meeting. And he put us all in a semicircle. And he went around the group and he said, this morning, rather than your 60-second, they did 60-second presentation. So rather than your weekly presentation, what I'd like you to do is say, how are you doing and how's your family? How are you? How's your family? Let's go around. We're standing in the parking lot of like a Coco's restaurant or something. And in a big semicircle, maybe 25 of us. And we went around and people said how they were doing. And nobody had any serious injuries. Nobody was hospitalized. There were injuries, but no serious injuries. And then, you know, they bumped the speaker that week. They talked about a couple of things with the chapter. And then when they went around for referrals, they said, if you have a referral, you know, please give it. However, what we really want today, in addition to referrals, we want to know what referrals you have. But in addition to referrals, what do you need? Is there something you need that someone here might be able to help you with? And two just stood out in my mind. Now, this is talking about creating community. One person said, the water main broke at our house. We have no water. There's no running water at all. And a member said, I've got 5 bottles of Sparkletts water. I don't even know if Sparkletts does water anymore, but they're those big drums of glass drums of water. Back then they were glass. He says, I got 5 of them. I'm happy to give you 3. And I'm going to keep 2 for anybody else that needs some. And so he gave this water to this BNI member who had no water. And then another member said, I have no power. The power has been completely cut out on our house for the last couple of days. And one of the members said, I have a gasoline generator and I have power at my house, so I don't need the generator. Do you want to borrow it? And the member said, yeah. And I watched as one member after another talked about whatever challenges they had, and somebody stepped up in the chapter and helped them. And so that's what I was thinking during COVID when I came up with the phrase that BNI is a beacon of hope in a sea of fear. I was thinking back to Northridge. I was thinking back to Hurricane Katrina and what happened with BNI members during Hurricane Katrina. When I came up with that phrase, that BNI is a beacon of hope in a sea of fear. And that's all because of community. Community is key. And the stronger you can build the community in your chapter, the sense of community in your chapter, and add lifelong learning to it, the stronger your group is going to be. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great question. Great answer. I'm going to go to Beth next for her question. We have 4 more questions that hopefully we'll be able to squeeze in. Beth, what is your question?
So my question is, I have a major university in my town, and I would enjoy going to talk to the marketing students about networking. So once I get connected with a person that works in the networking or in the marketing department, what would be a good conversation starter to get me in the door to like move this forward?
Well, good luck, Beth. We don't teach networking in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. And you know, I've taught at 3 different universities, just recently at Concordia here in Texas. I've been on the board, as was mentioned in my bio. I've been on the board of trustees where the president reported to us. And I've learned something about universities. Courses are created by the full-time tenured professors. The president can't create a course. The dean can't create a course. An adjunct faculty member can't create a course. So courses are created by the full-time tenured professors. Here's the problem. And hopefully we don't have any full-time tenured professors in business on this call. Here's my belief of the problem. Full-time tenured professors in business have never had a real job in their life. They teach business, but they've never run a business. Now, they always get mad at me when I say that because they say, oh, I'm a consultant. I run a consulting business. I'm sorry. That's BS. I've been a consultant. I could go home at night after consulting with somebody and sleep just fine. And they had to deal with the payroll issue and the employment issue and the challenges of, you know, making budget. I didn't have to deal with that. I could consult with them. Being a consultant is not the same as running a corporation that makes widgets or provides some scalable service. So I tell you that because I think you're going uphill. If you were determined to do it, I would talk to an adjunct faculty member, not a tenured professor, because the tenured professors really, for the most part, have probably never run a company. I mean, come on, think about it. We don't teach sales in the marketing department. We don't teach sales. Sales. Why? Well, we don't teach sales because tenured professors don't want to get their hands dirty and make a sale. They want to do stuff that is, you know, social media or advertising. You know, they don't want to sell. So we don't have closing techniques or sales techniques. Your adjunct professors, they understand. Most of them have a job or run a business. They might be interested in having you speak, but to be honest with you, it's an uphill battle. I've taught off and on for more than 20 years, and I have given up trying to get this into universities because until the university system changes dramatically, it's an uphill battle. I'd rather teach BNI members how to do this, and it's a whole different thing when you're dealing with college students. By the way, when I taught management, I taught marketing, and when I had a marketing class, I would have one lecture on networking. And I remember saying, okay, so let's start by talking about chambers of commerce and Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis. Immediately, a hand went up. I'm like, yeah. What's a chamber of commerce? What's a Rotary? I mean, so you think that at a college level, and that was 25 years ago. Today, it's probably worse. You'd think at a college level, they would know what a chamber of commerce is. They don't. So you got to start really, really low and work your way up, which takes time. And you got to have a professor who's willing to do it, which is hard to get. I'd recommend that, honestly, I'd recommend that you volunteer to be the education coordinator of your chapter. You'll have a bigger impact teaching members of your chapter how to network than you will in one lecture at a university. That's my very somewhat negative opinion, having been involved with universities for decades.
Well, I appreciate that. I am the education director this term. So.
You'll make a bigger impact with that than you will with getting into a university. Now, if it falls into your lap and somehow, run with it. But be aware that it's the adjuncts that are most likely to bring you in, not the tenured professors, usually. I mean, I even had a dean of a university say, we'll never teach that here. That's a soft science. I said, do you teach leadership? Well, yeah. I said, you know, I know John Maxwell. He would say leadership is a soft science, yet you teach it. So you do teach soft sciences. You just don't teach soft sciences that involve anything that involves sales or marketing. It's like, okay, fine. Yeah. Anyway, I hope that helps. It's probably a depressing answer, but I want people to spend time on things that make a difference. And I no longer believe I can make a difference teaching networking at universities.
Well, thank you so much. Great question, Beth. Great response, Ivan. I'm sitting here thinking my favorite college professor in the business school, he owned a bar. I mean, we're at college, it was around the corner. What can I say? I don't think I ever went there, but you know.
Sure, Tiffany.
No, I don't think I did. I didn't drink much back then. I was a school person, whatever. Anyway, but like I remember him being my favorite, and he was the one that had that real world experience versus textbook. So I totally get it. Gloria is up with our next question.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Ivan, for sharing your time with us. I'm loving this. And speaking of things that make a difference, I just feel that BNI is a treasure trove of activities, education, experiences. And I'd like to know what you feel are the top 3 activities as a member that we should focus on to make the biggest impact for BNI success and our business success.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy, it's a long answer, but an easy answer. And I'm going to put it in the chat box. Here we go. Where's everybody? Meeting group chat. I think this goes to everybody. There we go. Episode number 469 of the BNI podcast, 3 + 1 = member success. And the 3 + 1 is 1, embrace quality. Qualities, you know, people ask me what's more important, quality or quantity? And my answer is, what's more important, your left hand or your right hand? And, you know, if you're right-handed like I am, I'd say, well, my right hand. Okay, but is your left hand fairly important? It's like, yeah, it's pretty important. You know, which would you like to lose? Well, I'd rather not lose any, but if I had to, it'd be my left. So to me, quality is my right hand. It's slightly more important. But quantity is also important. There's a direct and dramatic linear correlation between the number of members in a chapter and the amount of business that's generated in the chapter. And I'll give you a great example. We were talking about India earlier. So Max Srinivasan, who was a president of international affairs at one point, told a chapter in India, and this was maybe a decade ago. He told them, he told a region in India, do you know there are chapters in the United States that are $1 million chapters? Really? He said, yeah, $1 million. I'm like, wow, we can do that. And he went back like 2 or 3 years later to that same region, and they said, we have 10 chapters that are $1 million, not million rupees, $1 million chapters. He said, that's amazing. They said, yeah, we're doing $1 million a month. He didn't tell them it was a year. He didn't think to tell them it was a year. They didn't know it wasn't possible. And so they became $1 million chapters a month, generating $1 million a month. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. Of the now, as of a year ago, there are now over 50 chapters that are in India that are $1 million a month. Only one of them has less than 50 members. Only one of them has, and it's like 48. Okay, so they're almost all over 50 members. So what's more important? Well, quality is probably a little bit more important, but quantity is critical. You want to be generating a lot of business. And this podcast really shows that visually pretty well. So quality, quantity, and engagement. And by engagement, I mean things like lifelong learning and one-to-ones. And I talk about that at length in episode number 469. 3 + 1 = member success. The +1, of course, is storytelling. It's all about telling stories, like the story of Northridge. It's a powerful, powerful story. And it illustrates a really important point. Mac's story about $1 million chapter, and they didn't know he meant $1 million a year. And so, if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. And I think what happens in a lot of countries, and not just the US, countries that have been around a long time, Canada, United Kingdom, they get complacent. And they don't realize that a lot more is possible. Why accept mediocrity when excellence is an option? Excellence is an option. And I've seen it over and over and over again, starting with the United States. The first chapter in the world that was about 100 members was in the United States. Not India, not China, not Japan. It was the United States. All right, I hope that answers your question.
So just a quick question, Ivan. What time do you need to be gone with us? Because I want to make sure
I got 20 minutes.
Okay, all right. So do we know if the chapter that Jason and Sean are in was the first 100-member chapter in the US, or if it was a different one? Jason, Tom.
I believe it's actually in West Virginia. They were the first over the marker. But to everything that Ivan just said recently, it was in 2012. I got to be the president for the first time. I had no idea what I was doing. So I submerged myself into his podcasts and continuing the education. And from that, what I instilled in that was the accountability and the building a chapter by design. And now 13 and a half years later, we are 120 members with a rolling total exceeding $17 million annually.
So you're doing $1 million a month. And there are chapters in the United States that, I've talked to them, they're like, no, it's not possible. Yes, it is possible. Here's where it's not possible. It's in your head. But when you think it's possible, it then becomes possible. Good on you. I'm really proud of your group. Well done.
And I saw Sean pop in, so I didn't know if was that. And Tom, did I just see your hand? Okay, Sean, anything you want to add?
I'm going to throw one other thing before he adds it. This is a podcast that I did with the founders chapter, which was about to go under. And I personally coached them a few years ago, and they took their chapter from about 15, 16 members. They're now over 45. At the time we did this podcast, I think they were tickling 40. So I know it's possible when you do the things that Jason, I think it was Jason that was talking about there. All right. Sorry, Tiffany, what's the next question?
Sean, did you want to add anything quick?
No,
Okay.
just to, I keep hearing my name, so hello.
Oh, all right. All right. So we have two more questions coming. Nigel, then Debbie. So Nigel, I will let you ask your question first.
Dr. Misner, tell us, how do you see artificial intelligence impacting on networking in the next few years?
Well, I think it's a great tool. It's your crystal ball is about as good as my crystal ball. And I would equate it to asking someone what impact the internet will have on them in 1995. And, in 1995, people were like, I don't know, but it looks kind of cool. And, I should be involved. And by the way, BNI certainly, we've been an early adopter to technology. We're attempting to use AI in very creative ways right now that I can't share at the moment, but we want to use AI. I can tell you that it's with educational content. But we've always been an early adopter. You can't have a 3-letter domain, BNI.com, if you weren't an early adopter to technology. So I think AI can be good. It's going to hurt a couple of professions fairly quickly. Editors, it's going to hurt them in BNI. We don't have too many paralegals in BNI, but it's going to hurt the paralegal industry. But after that, we're mostly a service-based business or focus. I think we're fine for the next few years. Our members are going to be fine. If anything, I think you can use AI to help you in your business. I'll give you an example. I was being driven by a BNI member in a sedan service from the airport to my house, and we were talking about contact spheres and power teams. Contact sphere is a group of professions that have a symbiotic relationship. They're compatible, non-competitive professions. Power team are the people that you actually have the relationship with within that contact sphere. And he said, I don't know who I could invite into a power team for a sedan service. And I said, well, have you asked ChatGPT? And he said, no. And I said, all right, I'll tell you what, give me your email. I'll ask ChatGPT and I'll email it to you. And I asked Chat, first you have to describe, this is what a context sphere is. This is what a power team is as defined by me. Now, with that definition, what would be a good power team for a sedan service? And I got a list of like 10 professions and they were great. And I cut and pasted them and sent it to them. They were things like hotel concierge services. Wow, of course. Yeah. Wedding planners. Yeah. Real estate agents. But there were more. There were like 8 or 9 or 10. And I would say half of them, he said, I would have never thought of those. So you can use AI in your business. Listen, I use AI not to write, but to get some ideas. I'll use AI. I used AI extensively to do a survey for a book I'm doing called Garage to Global. How do you take your business from your garage to make it a global enterprise? And I needed about 80 to 100 choices for a survey under 7 or 8 different topics. I needed at least 10 for each topic, 10 to 12. And so I said, what are the most important factors in scaling a business from a marketing capacity? What are the most important factors for scaling a business from an economic capacity? And from each topic, each category, I asked, and I got these amazing answers. I was like, wow, I didn't even think of that. Why didn't I think of that? Some of them I had already thought of, some of them I hadn't. Normally, to do a survey, you gotta spend hours coming up with topics. Then you send it out and you let people smack it around. And they tell you, well, you forgot about this and you forgot about that. And they send it back to you and you do another draft of the survey and you send it out again and they smack it around and you get some new stuff. And that usually takes 3 months. I did the entire survey start to finish in a week because it gave me all the answers. I put out the sample survey. I got like 30 or 40 responses. Only one person had an idea that wasn't suggested by ChatGPT. I added it and it became my survey. I saved almost 3 months' work by using AI. So I think AI can help with your marketing content, your editorial content, certainly with surveys, and probably many other things that I'm not thinking of that, okay, I'll tell you one. I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I used it recently. We had someone who passed away in BNI a month or so ago. Didn't really know the individual. I knew of them. I'd met them once. And I asked ChatGPT to give me a very heartfelt response to the family of the person who passed away. And it gave me a great response, which I edited, changed, made personal, and sent. It was better than I would have written although I added content to it. So, I mean, I think AI can be an incredible tool in a number of ways. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
We can't be afraid of AI. I mean, that horse is out of the barn. Okay. We have to embrace it. It's like people, when the internet was growing and people were going like, I don't want to do the internet. It's like, what? Then you're going to go out of business or you're going to be left behind. You gotta embrace it and find ways to use it effectively.
I always ask it, how do I help the category that I'm meeting for a one-to-one ahead of that meeting?
Great idea, Nigel.
And it is so amazing because you can imagine that embodies givers gain. So they are astonished that you are helping them in that way.
All right. Do you have at least one or two good stories? You don't share them now, but do you have one or two good stories that have resulted from that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then here's what I want you to do. I want you to email me at Misner@bni.com. Misner, M-I-S-N-E-R @bni.com. And I'm going to send and just say what you just told me. And I'm going to have Dana. Tiffanie knows this because Tiffany's been on my podcast probably more than almost anybody else. I'll have Dana, my assistant, send you a form to outline the topic for a podcast with questions I can ask you and whatnot. I would love to do a podcast with you on that topic because it's a hands-on use of AI in BNI. And it's a great use. Love the concept. I'd love to have you be a guest on my podcast. Email me and I'll have Dana send you the form.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Awesome. And kudos and congrats on that. Yeah, sometimes if you have ideas for podcasts, Dr. Misner is open to potentially. That's why I get on there so much. I'm just like, hey, what about this?
Ivan, you guys, Ivan, do you know why? Listen, do you know why I use the doctor? Let me tell you why. I have imposters all the time. You can find an imposter up on Facebook right now, Diego Mayo. And he's using my photos. I'm having a hard time getting him down because he's not using my name, but I have people who use my name and I want to stop imposters. So I trademarked my name, but you can't trademark a name unless you add something to it. So you can't just trademark Ivan Misner. So by adding doctor, I was able to get a trademark. And with the trademark, I can stop imposters almost immediately who use my name. And that's why you see it on everything.
Love it. Love it. All right. Our last question is from Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi there. My question is that I'm the education coordinator this year, and we have great number of referrals. Thank you for closed business. It's pretty good, but I would love to help our chapter to be able to get it higher. And I'm wondering if you have any tips for anything that I can interweave throughout the education coordinator spotlight moments that will help shift the mindset of the group toward getting people referrals with business that closes.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand the question. And I also got a question from, who was it? About inviting visitors. And I'm going to put an answer in here about inviting visitors. Go to this podcast about inviting visitors. There's a whole lot of podcasts listed in that podcast. But that was a question that was online. Debbie, repeat your question again. It's about increasing thank you for closed business.
Yeah, just how to help the group to shift the mindset from I threw a referral somebody's way. I gave them the business card, or whatnot, and helping people shift the mindset toward giving a referral that is likely to close or helping that along versus just like, yay, I scored a point in my mind because I gave a referral.
Yeah, so there is a podcast. I haven't looked this one up in a long time. Here it is. Episode 548, the 5 levels of a referral. The 5 levels of a referral. Let me put that in the chat box. Are you the education coordinator, Debbie?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I would talk about these 5 levels of a referral, and what you want to be doing is, for the most part, giving level 4 and 5. So what you described is basically a level 1 or 2 referral. I gave your name and card. And it's nice, and I appreciate it. But you really want to give a great referral. What you want to do is, make a personal introduction either by phone, you do a joint call, or by email, or better yet, actually go with your referral partner, go with the BNI member to your client or customer or the person you're giving the referral to. You go there and make a personal introduction. You can make the personal introduction and then leave and let the two of them talk. But, that's a level 5 referral, is, taking them and introducing them to the person. So this is an issue of educating people on the levels of a referral. Do you want to give out level 1 referrals, or do you want to give out level 4 or 5 referrals? Better yet, do you want to get level 1 referrals, or do you want to get level 4 or 5 referrals? That's really, what's in it for them. And so you want to talk about what they want to get. And in order to do that, you want to spend a little bit of time talking about these different levels. And what I would do is I'd get a couple of people who've received a level 4 or 5 referral, and I'd have them share with you your time. So here's a great example. Don't throw people under the bus for a level 1 or 2. You could talk about that yourself. But have somebody who's received a level 4 or 5 referral, and you describe it, and then have them talk about how amazing it was and what a difference it made. And what we want is people generating a boatload of thank you for closed business. That's the goal. And does it take a little longer? Yeah, okay. So they kill an hour and a half out of their day, but they turn it into a level 4 or 5 referral. And if you do that enough for people, they're going to do it for you. And then you're going to be increasing the thank you for closed business, and you're going to be doing $1 million a month, like a number of our chapters are doing. But in order to do that, you have to have a plan, a strategy, and you have to implement it. You can't be complacent about it. The more engaged you are, that's the third part of the 3+1. The more engaged you are, the more successful you are. The more successful you are, the more this is great for you and your members. And that's what I want. I want BNI, I want members to be wildly successful in BNI. And Lord knows we have the content to help people do that if they just do it. Does that help, Debbie?
Completely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Tiffany, anything else?
I think that was all of the questions. So if you want to wrap up, anything else you want to add?
I really believe in our philosophy of giver's gain, and it has been incredibly powerful. I think it's one of the reasons why we as an organization are coming up on 40 years of consecutive growth, year on year on year, 40 years. There are very few companies, even during the COVID years we grew. There are very few companies in the world that can say they've had 40 years of consecutive growth. And I think one of the reasons for that is our principal core value of giver's gain. And giver's gain is more than a phrase to me. It's a way of living one's life. It's a perspective to view and interact with the world. It's an attitude, not an expectation. And when it's applied properly, it'll change your life. And when it changes enough lives, it'll change the world. And that's what we're doing in BNI. I wish you success there in Florida. I know you've been hit hard by the hurricanes, and I hope that you come together as a community and build your businesses back up. And I wish you nothing but the best. Tiffany, thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Let's give Ivan a round of applause. Appreciate you being here, answering these questions for us. I think everybody that had a question got it answered, so that's always brilliant. What do you have coming up next?
Well, let's see. I'm headed to Charlotte tomorrow to speak to BNI members in Charlotte and have a board meeting for BNI. I'm still, for those of you who don't know, I still own part of BNI. I am an owner, and I am still a member of the board of directors. So I go to all the boring board meetings. Trust me, a BNI meeting is way more interesting than the board meetings. But I'll tell you this about the board that we have. They are first and foremost focused on growth. They're not talking about net profit. I mean, I've never, not in the 10 years, I've not heard anyone say, what's our net profit? I've heard them, how are we growing and how are we doing? So it's a really great group of people that are focused on growing the business, because the more we grow the business, the more we help members grow. So I'm doing that. And then 2 weeks later, I'm headed to Hawaii for the BNI convention. And I love the BNI convention. I think I said it's like going to it's like going to the United Nations where all the countries love each other. So I'll do that. And then I'm going to take a week vacation. Shh. I'm going to go to Maui for a week with my lovely wife. I just got married about a year ago, so we'll be coming up on 1 year, Jody and I.
Well, congratulations on your 1 year. Congratulations on almost 40 years in BNI. It's been an amazing organization. And we so much appreciate you sharing your expertise today.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Take care, and
Thank
hope
you.
to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.